Hello everybody, welcome back, Sam Tom here. Today we are talking about Children of the Corn, the original one. I want to say 1984, but I could be wrong. It'll be correct in the title. But before I get into my notes, I don't have any physical media for this, but I don't like it when that shelf's empty, so we're just gonna put some of these up there. We're just filling it in. Yep. A couple more. Okay. Yeah. Children. All right. So this movie, I'm laughing at my own joke here. This movie occupied such a strange place in my brain. And we're transitioning now. The last few days have just been kind of classic 80s slashers. And like this is a good transition because it also fits that in the timeline. But now we're getting into franchises that impacted me and kind of my journey into horror as a child. But what's odd about this franchise is I know that I was aware of this franchise as a child. And yet, as an adult, before today, when I rewatched it, I could have told you nothing about this movie. You know, I'm fairly certain I've seen at least one, if not multiple of them before, but I have zero memory of them, of which ones they would have been. I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that my older brother was into this franchise. Now, in several of my videos, I mentioned that a lot of my exposure to things was via my older sister, who is 5 years older than me. So that's how I got into things like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer and Final Destination and other non-horror things too, but that's what's relevant now. But I have an older brother who's 10 years older than me. But he kind of... I haven't talked to him in a couple decades. So my memories of him are a little foggy, and he hasn't had as much of a direct impact on my interests. Because obviously a 10-year age gap is a lot more than a 5-year age gap, and he and I just weren't as close as my sister and I. But I'm pretty sure he is why I'm aware of this franchise. Whether that's just that he was watching it and I just kind of saw the covers, or if I ever watched any of them with him, I could not tell you. My memory does not go back that far. I definitely have memories of seeing some of the sequels in the video store and like wanting to rent them. Whether that's because I had seen some of them and wanted to see more, or I had never seen any of them and I just wanted to see one. I don't remember. Whether we actually rented them and took them home or not, I don't remember. Like I said, this occupies such a strange place in my brain. So of all the stuff I'm looking at this October, I don't want to say that I was the most excited to revisit this, but I was definitely the most intrigued by this one. And this is why, like I don't even own it, right? That's how not a part of me it is. And yet, anytime the discussion about horror and horror films and horror franchises comes up, to me, Children of the Corn always seems like it should be in that conversation, and it very rarely is. But it was like the first one I was aware of, or the first one I have memory of being aware of. So, it's not hard to find for free online, legally. So that's what I did. I watched it online on a free streaming service. And when it started, I thought it was not going to be very eventful. So I didn't think I would take many notes, but I took up a full page of notes here. So I'm going to stop wasting time and get to my notes. First note, Stephen King. Did not realize that this was a Stephen King property. And I saw that pop up on screen. And my first thought was, wait a minute. Stephen King has had a huge resurgence lately in the last few years. Sorry, box. That's what all those were sitting on, and it's in my way. So I was like, has this been redone in the last couple years? Yes, it has. There was a remake / prequel / soft reboot something in 2020. And like, I don't think it's in it, but like, I would say pretty to very interested in checking out more of this franchise. I know that not all of them are in the same continuity. I know that it restarts a couple times. But like, this premise is so simple and to me so effective that I'm curious to see other meals prepared with the same ingredients, if that makes sense. And like, to touch on why I think it's so effective, I live in rural Illinois, which is like, I know technically this takes place in Nebraska, but man, it's basically the same thing. I got cornfields all around me. I drive through cornfields every day, and like, sometimes it gets pretty out there. And so like, I had cornfields in my yard when I was growing up. The first house that I have memory of living in, not the first house that I lived in, but the first house I have memory of was 17 acres. And we had a big old cornfield in the front. We had a big old cornfield in the back. And there were definitely spooky things that happened out there, spooky things that we found out there. And I definitely got lost in the cornfield at least a couple times. So like, all the pieces are there for me. If you don't experience that, then I don't know, maybe it just feels like woods, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it doesn't seem that scary. It's corn, right? But like, corn's creepy. So I got something in my eye. There's a bug flying around. So this is a very effective premise to me of like, not even when we get into the plot, just the idea of weird things happening in and around corn. Okay. Why did he lock the door? So we get the flashback 3 years ago, and the kind of not the catalyst, but the first kind of attack of the children on the adults. And there's Isaac outside, Malachi and a bunch of others are inside, and they lock the door to the cafe before they attack everybody. And like, it's an intimidating shot, I guess. It like helps set the mood, but why did they do that? Because like, it's not like there's anybody outside that's going to come in to help. Presumably, we don't see anybody outside. We don't see anybody trying to get in. Isaac is just standing there outside. So it's like to stop them from getting out, I guess. But you know, it's just, you just got to, it's not like they need a key. They just flick it. So like, I guess it would slow them down. And maybe that's all they were going for. But it seemed like there was an awful lot of focus put on that little switching of the lock that didn't really come into play at all, even a little bit. Okay. Then we jump to the present day. We're definitely getting into spoilers, by the way. I'm just running through everything here. We get Bert and Vicky driving a car, and then they hit a kid in the middle of the road. And I'm watching these and recording the videos not in the same order that I'll be uploading them. So this video hasn't been uploaded yet. But I have the most recent one that I've watched is I Know What You Did Last Summer. And that's exactly what happens in that movie. It's a bunch of people in a car hit a guy on the road. So I wrote, I Know What You Did Last Harvest Season. Because very similar setup. Although these people aren't quite as terrible as the teenagers in that movie. So they hit this kid standing in the road. And like, I guess later they say that they thought it was an animal. But they hit the kid, swerve off to the side of the road. And Bert turns to Vicky, right? And he's concerned about Vicky. And he's like, let me check, like, to see if she's okay. And it's just like, what? You hit a kid. Go check on the kid. But then, you know, they're like, that was an animal, right? And then he goes to check. So, like, it's not as bad as it seemed in the moment, but it was just like, you're just ignoring this child that you ran over because she bumped her head. So then I wrote, why is he standing in the middle of the road? And, like, there's never really a great answer given. When I read the plot summary, it said that he stumbled into the road. But like when you see that shot, he's clearly just standing there. He's not moving, right? He's just standing there. But I went back and I rewound and I watched and I counted. And like throughout the scene, I'm going to try to turn this way. Bert is driving, right? And the road is this way, but he's also looking in the map, which is this way, right? But he keeps looking up to the road, right? He's looking at the map more than he probably should. But he's not looking at the road, right? And there are 3 seconds between the last time that he looks at the road, turns to the map, 3 seconds later he hits the kid. Right? Now there is a cut there. So maybe there were a couple more seconds. But out on those country roads, you could see real far. So it's odd to me. Just something doesn't add up, right? Because if he was just standing there, Bert would have seen him within those 3 seconds, right? So he would have had to have like jumped out. But he was standing still. He wasn't moving. So I don't know what's going on there. I'm definitely way overthinking this. Like, I generally like this movie. I'm nitpicking a lot of stuff here because that's kind of what I've started doing. That's kind of weird. I think it would have been a lot more effective if we had seen him kind of stumbling into the road. So I guess he stumbled out of the corn. He's obviously disoriented because he's been attacked, right? And his throat's cut. So maybe he didn't see the car coming. So that's why he was standing there. But it looked like he was, I don't know. Just a little weird. Just a little thing. Bert tells Vicky to stay in the car and keep all the doors locked. I wrote down that she didn't follow directions, but then turned out that she did. And then my next note is, oh great, dream sequences. If you've seen many of my videos, you know that I hate it when movies put in a stupid jump scare thing that's just, oh, it was just part of a dream. And like, as I talked about in my Nightmare on Elm Street, if the whole movie is about that, then it works. But it's just one little thing. It's so lazy. It's like, come on, do something better. Joey's a little cheater. They're playing Monopoly and he cheats, but Sarah doesn't let him. Still not. Okay, so then Bert and Vicky keep on driving. They don't leave Joseph. They take him with them. But like as they're talking, I don't remember what he's looking at. Oh, it's the stuff in the suitcase, I think. She pulls out like the corn crucifix, and then he's like staring at that, and I'm like, okay, at this point, buddy, you should not be taking your eyes off of the road. Like, again, I think he wasn't doing anything majorly neglectful before, but it's like at that point, after you've hit a child, and you're still surrounded by corn, do not take your eyes off of that road. I nearly got hit by a semi yesterday when I was out door dashing, and it was 100% my fault. I was driving in a truck yard, and I wasn't really paying attention. There were no lanes, and I just kind of went to turn around, and I didn't realize there was a semi right next to me. And luckily, he was paying more attention because he turned out of the way and braked and honked his horn, so that then I was aware of him. But you bet your butt, the rest of that night, I was super cautious anytime I went to move to the left. What are you doing, Bert? You're just not even looking at the road anymore. Oh. At one point, they stop and they talk to this gas station owner. And throughout the shot, there are shots of just the cornfield with no characters in it. And they've done some kind of effect or sped up the footage or whatever to make it look like the clouds are rolling really heavily, like there's a storm coming. But anytime there are people in the shot, the clouds are still. And then in some of the shots of the clouds rolling, they're rolling opposite directions. So not great cloud continuity in that shot. Then the characters are trying to find this other town. I forget what it was called. And they're driving through these like not even dirt roads, just dirt paths in the cornfield. And they're arguing about how lost they are, which like is fine. That would happen. But at one point, Vicky says, just tell me where we are. How and why could you possibly think that Bert would have an answer to that? And like, of course, his response is, I don't know. Like, that's just such a stupid thing to say at that moment. Then I wrote down so much for Thou Shalt Not Kill, because we get this whole thing with These children supposedly following the Lord, supposedly following scripture, yet all gung-ho about killing people. And, like, I can't fault the movie that much for it, because, like, there are people like that in the world that claim to be following this one dogma, but then the way they act is completely contrary to that. So, not a fault on the movie, just a fault on their logic, which Bert points out later. Uh, More walking into strangers' houses. I ranted about this in my video for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Why do people just walk into strangers' houses? And, like, I get it. They got a dead kid in their truck. They're trying to call somebody. But, like, it's not super pressing. It's not like he's injured and dying. He's already dead. You don't need to walk into strangers' houses. What is up with that? Then I wrote, would nobody notice that a town went ghost? So all the adults are gone, right? Except for this gas station owner. So I'm just wondering, and like this is in 1984, and it's in rural Nebraska. So like that's before I was alive, and in a place that I never lived. I mean, I've lived in pretty rural places, but nowhere this rural. But I'm like, surely there are stores and supply chains that previously fed into this town that are no longer feeding into this town. And it's been 3 years. So I'm like, have none of those supply chains noticed? They've cut all the telephones in town. So nobody's using the telephone service in town. So, like, has the telephone company not noticed that no calls are coming to or from this town? Is there nobody outside of that town that knew people in the town, like relatives of the adults that didn't live in the town, that have tried calling into the town and have asked the phone company, like, I've called the number for a week now and the number's not going through? Like, I feel like those kind of reports have to be happening, but have they never looked into it? I assume they're not using a lot of electricity. Did the electric company not realize that this town is not drawing any power anymore? I know this is like way in the weeds of this premise, but I think it's a bigger problem because we have a 3-year time jump. And I wrote somewhere else, like, how are they harvesting this corn every year? Are the kids doing all of the harvesting on their own? Is the demon thing, which, like, it took me a while before I realized that there was actually a thing. We'll get to there, but, like, is that somehow making the corn keep coming back every year? Are they actually planting and harvesting it and, like, taking care of it all in the off? Like, I got a lot of questions about the world building of this movie. I think it's all interesting, but, like, I feel like there are answers to be had there, but we are not given any. Does the demon make all of these outside companies unaware of what's going on? Did they put up all these weird road signs, or is that part of the demon? Or, like, what's going on with that? Does the Nebraska Department of Transportation not realize what's going on with these signs? Has no one else reported it? I mean, there doesn't seem to be a lot of traffic around there, because the guy says something about the third car in a month. Does everyone who drives through there get attacked by these kids? Because the only person up on that crucifix is the cop who was there from the town already. There's no other outsiders there. Do they take them down after some point? Why didn't they take the cop down? There's a lot of questions about this world building. And I just want to know. I'm a curious guy. Oh, okay. What do we got? I need to keep track of where I'm at. How many kids do you think you could take in a fight? Because Vicky can't take any, apparently, because she doesn't even fight back at all. They get like 2 kids on her, and she goes with them. Bert fights back quite a bit, he's not even trying to hurt the kids. He's just trying to keep them off of him. There's a Family Guy scene about this where they discuss. I think they specify 4th graders. How many 4th graders could you take in a fight? And Peter says something about, like, getting in a bathroom stall so that they can only come a couple at a time, and he would just kick them all. But I'm gonna put it this way. We'll say I like 4th graders. We'll keep with 4th graders, because some of these kids are like adults, 18 and 19 years old. So let's stick with 4th graders. Open field, not a cornfield, just like open grass field. No tools, nowhere to hide, nowhere to bottleneck them. How many 4th graders do you think you could take in a fight? before it's too many? Let me know in the comments. Don't get too graphic about it. This question always reminds me. One of the schools that I used to teach at. One day I went out with the kids at recess, and the fifth graders were playing basketball, and so I decided to go and play. And I played against the entire fifth grade boys, and I kicked their butts. Not because I'm good at basketball, but just because I'm so much taller than them, so they can barely make a basket at all. I get every rebound. Pretty easy for me to work my way through them, and then even when I miss, I just get my own rebound and score again. So it's like, I could take a lot of fifth graders, because if they can't score, then I got the game. They can't out-jump me for the rebounds. Obviously, that's different than fighting. That's just what that question always makes me think of. I say that as if I hear that question a lot. Not a lot, but not never. How many fourth graders could you take in a fight? The power dynamic is weird. This gets addressed later, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it's weird that Malachi is taking orders from Isaac. So I'm just like, does Malachi, like, really, truly believe this dogma that they're talking about? Because he kind of seems like the kind of guy that wouldn't, and then it kind of turns out, it's like, later he turns on Isaac, but it's like, is it because he doesn't believe in their God or whatever, or does he just not believe in Isaac? Because after he takes over, it's not like he starts claiming to hear the word of he who hides behind the rows, he who walks behind the roads. So I'm just unclear what Malachi's spiritual state is. Does that break the movie? No. Again, I'm just a curious guy. So then I wrote supernatural corn. We saw at one point earlier the corn kind of part ways for Joseph. But I kind of interpreted that as like kind of in his head, but then it does the same thing for Bert, and then obviously later we find out that weird stuff is going on. But this is kind of when I first started realizing, like, is there actually something going on? Because again, I could not remember anything about this movie, so for most of this movie, I was just thinking that Isaac was just spitballing out of his mouth just to control these kids for some reason. So I was kind of surprised by the end that there was an actual entity behind it all along. They keep using the word non-believer. And I didn't write down any quotes, but, they say things like, get the non-believer, or kill the non-believer, or blank the non-believer. And it just made me think of Charlie the Unicorn. Anybody remember Charlie the Unicorn? Man, that was big back in the day. Shun the non-believer, Charlie. Shun. So I was wondering if that was going to be a line from this movie, and like, was that a reference in Charlie the Unicorn? I always say that in reference to Charlie the Unicorn. Was Charlie the Unicorn referencing children of the corn? There's some similarity in those names, but they never say that line. So I don't think that was the case. I took notice of at least one left-handed kid when they're all making this motion when Vicky's up on, and they're like, kill, 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 kill. There's one kid that's got his left hand, and I was just like, an ultra-religious community like this seems like that left-handedness might be something that they would not tolerate. And it kind of seemed like I would expect people like that to either force the left-handed person to use their right hand or sacrifice them. But I guess not. Oh, handled the stabbing pretty well. Oh, Bert. So Bert gets stabbed in the chest, and it does not play into the story at all. He's totally fine running away. He's sprinting like Usain Bolt out of there. Doesn't affect him at all. He's like holding it every once in a while, but it seems like he's in that much pain, and then they get a first aid kit and they like dress it, but like it never hinders him in any way. So why stab him? I guess it makes us more, but like if immediately after he gets stabbed you show him sprinting away like an Olympic athlete, then it doesn't really do much to make me think that he's injured. I guess it just lets us know that he can get injured. I don't know. Weird choice. I would have either not stabbed him or had him react more to it, because he just kind of just shrugs it off. Okay, Isaac getting taken by the children is very satisfying. Damn it. This is one of those things that when I say it out loud, it's gonna sound really really stupid. But like, I feel like, and I never watched Game of Thrones, but that's where King Joffrey is from, right? And I feel like King Joffrey was a really like the example for a while of the bratty kid in charge. And like, again, I've never watched it, but like this, when he gets taken away and he's like, no, 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 and he's got that horrible voice. Um, this gave me vibes of that, and I'm just kind of wondering how far back that trope goes. What's the oldest example you can think of a bratty kid in charge who then acts bratty when he's not in charge anymore? Because Isaac, bro, and again, at this point, I'm not sure if he's just making this all up or if he truly believes something, but like, if you get taken, right, and you claim that you are the vessel for your Lord, and you get taken and you get captured and you get put up on this thing, just be chill, bro. Right? Because if you're chill and you're like, no, man, I'm going to be fine. He's going to come he's going to smite all of you guys, but I'm going to be fine. That's way more scary for everybody else than you whining and crying like a little baby. Right? Because you don't seem like you got any power then. And it's like, not to draw the parallel, but like, who was pretty chill when they got put up on a cross? Jesus. And like, he wasn't doing great, and he was calling out to God, like, why have you done this to me? But like, as far as I recall, and it's been a while since I read the Gospels, but I don't think he was like whining like a little baby to the soldiers. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I just feel like you should have been more chill. It's not like you got your hands nailed through or anything, right? Just be chill and be like, nah, man, he's gonna take care of me. It's you guys that are in trouble right now. Badly played, Isaac. Badly played. Also, I read through the trivia. The IMDb trivia. And like, I know not everything's in there is true. Just in general, on IMDb trivia. But there is a trivia point that claimed, and I do not believe this at all. They claimed that the actor playing Isaac, who's like 14 in this movie, and looks it, right? Because he's a child. They claim that he's 24 years old. Now, I don't know. I do not at all believe that that's true. Am I going to look it up later? Maybe. But just to confirm what I feel like I know. There's absolutely no way that child is a 24-year-old man. So either somebody is just goofing on IMDb trivia, or it was a typo and it was supposed to say 14. But I feel like the fact around it was like, despite the fact that he plays a child in the film, this actor was actually 24. There's no way that kid was 24. I don't believe it. If I look it up, if I look up the release date of this film and the year that kid was born, and he was born 24 years before this film, I'm just going to think that somebody edited the Wikipedia articles. There's absolutely no way that kid is 24. Why aren't Job and Sarah evil? So why are these two the only kids that are not part of this cult? That are not whatever. Now again, when I was reading the IMDb summary, it seemed to say that not the Wikipedia summary, it seemed to say that it was because they were not in the cornfield when Isaac started this or whatever. And they say something about that in the movie. And it's really hard for me to follow what Job is talking about when he's narrating a lot. And like they mentioned at the beginning that he was the only boy in church, only child in church. Where was Sarah at? Was Sarah in church? I don't remember seeing her. She wasn't in the cafe. So where was she? Just at home? So I was just like, again, how much of what happened was Isaac influencing the other kids versus the demon influencing the other kids versus some kind of combination? Again, I'm very confused about the world building here. How did the corn... Oh, I already asked about this. How did the corn keep getting harvested? Already went over that. Then I just wrote, what was that supposed to be? So Isaac is up on the crucifix, and some kind of, and I have another note here that just says $12. Because if you told me that the budget for this movie was $12, I would believe you. Turns out it was like 800,000. What was that supposed to be? That like crawled up Isaac. It was this very strange light effect, and like I get it. It's the 80s, and you're on a budget. But like when they show like the demon being killed or leaving the cornfield or whatever that was, like the fake fire looked bad, but like I could tell it was supposed to be fire. I don't even know what this thing was supposed to be. Was it supposed to be some kind of depiction of the creature itself, this light? Was it supposed to be some kind of energy field? Was it supposed to be some kind of fire overtaking? I have no idea what it was supposed to be. And I feel like you could have just like put a big like light flash right over Isaac's body, and that would have worked. And that would have been cheaper and not looked as horrible. So I don't know what that was supposed to be. Okay, then we get Bert. He's here in the clearing. He's fending them all off. And Malachi starts to fight back. And he knocks Bert down. Bert's on the ground. Malachi standing here. He's got no weapon. There's a kid standing next to... Either there's a kid standing next to Malachi that's holding a rope, or there's a rope on the ground. For some reason, Malachi picks up a rope. But there's another kid standing right next to Malachi holding a pitchfork. And Malachi picks up the rope and just flaps Bert a few times before Bert fights him off. And I just wrote, man, it's a good thing he grabbed the rope. Because if he had grabbed that pitchfork, that would have gone very differently. Maybe we would have just hit him with the handle. But I'm like, dude, the pitchfork just done. Take care of it. What are you doing? Then I wrote good old slapping. I don't even remember what happened here. Oh, Bert mounts Malachi on the ground and just starts smacking his face over and over, and because it reminded me of A Christmas Story, right? Is that what it's called? Where is it Ralphie? Is Ralphie the older one or the younger one? I think Ralphie's the older one. Where he just starts beating the crap out of the red-headed ginger, which is what Malachi is in this also, right? And I hope no one's offended by that term. My brother's a redhead. I mean no ill will by it. But, red-headed, pale-skinned, freckles. He looks like the kid in Christmas Story. And, I kind of looked it up to see if he was, and it doesn't look like he is. But Bert just slapping his face there. I'm just like, this guy has repeatedly tried to kill you, and you're doing less damage than Ralphie did against this guy that was just kind of bullying him. I was surprised for how long Malachi was out of the count, out of just getting slapped a few times. Bert's face undersells it. So this is the point where we get the Bugs Bunny burrowing under the ground effect of this actual demon, whatever it is. And this is the first point that Bert realizes that, oh, there's actually something going on here. It's not just Isaac talking out of his face, somehow controlling these. There's for real something paranormal going on around here. And, he's got a surprised face, but nowhere near the level of surprise that I feel like it should be. And, maybe he's just over it at that point, right? He's like, I've had such a long day. I killed a kid. We've been stuck in this town. We got lost in the cornfield. They shoved corn in my car. That guy at the gas station was really weird. I can't find this other town. I'm upset about my girlfriend, right? They're not married, right? So, maybe he's just you know what? I'm not even going to bother. Maybe that's where his head's at. And, he takes care of it later. He kills the whatever. But I just feel like I could have gotten a little more shock out of that expression. I don't know why I thought this was so funny, but they're hatching this plan to set the field on fire to kill the enemy, and Bert is going to like flood it with gasohol. I've never heard that. Is that a real thing, or is that just a fake combination of gasoline and alcohol? Maybe it's like an ethanol type corn fuel, because they mentioned that they get their own fuel from the corn. But whatever. They're gonna set it on fire, and he's gonna spark the fire with a Molotov cocktail. So he hasn't given them a bottle, and he tells, is it Vicky? He tells Vicky, find me a thick rag, and she just poor Jove is standing right in front of her, and he's wearing this like wool vest or something, and she just rips his vest. She puts no effort into they're in a barn. There's gonna be a rag somewhere. But no, just the first thing she sees is this poor kid's vest. I'm gonna destroy your vest. And he just goes, hey, that's not a rag. And just his delivery on it is so funny. I don't know why I find it so funny. But I did. I liked that a lot. Oh gosh! So now we're getting to the end of the movie. They go back. They set the field on fire. They've killed the entity. And like, so Isaac comes back to take Malachi, and he's like, "It wants you too." And so that's when I'm just like, was Isaac really this whole time actually telling everyone else what this entity was saying? Was he truly the only one that the entity was communicating with? Because, like, why? If you can do it with one, you can do it with more, right? Because, like, even after I realized that there's actual supernatural stuff going on, I still kind of thought that Isaac was just... have I been mixed? I might have mixed up Isaac and Malachi's name. I would have still thought that Isaac is still just manipulating people by claiming that he's in charge. But then after he got... So it's like, so then why take Isaac, Mr. Evil Entity, if he's your guy? But then he's like, he wants you too, Malachi. And it's like, so was Isaac telling the truth this whole time? Because not only is that way more bonkers on its own, but then it's just like, who are the bad guys? I mean, obviously the evil entity is the bad guy. But it's like, you would think that most of these kids would be bad guys. Particularly Isaac and Malachi. But it's like, if this entity is real, and you are really the only one it's communicating with, and it's telling you to do all these things, or presumably you're going to die, like, would I do it too? I don't, like, if I was a child, like now as an adult, I don't think I would. I hope I never have to find out. But, like, can you blame a child that's put in that situation for acting that way? I don't know. It's so... This is why I enjoyed this movie so much, because it raises a lot of questions, but in my opinion, not the type of questions that break the plot. Just the type of questions that I'm like, okay, there's a lot that you're hand-waving away here, and I want to know more. And it's like, at various points in the movie, again, it's a movie, right? This isn't real life, so, like, don't take this the wrong way. But during this movie, this fictional series of events, Bert is clearly, like, he's defending himself, but he's clearly not trying to actually harm anyone. He does attack Malachi a couple of times, but Malachi is clearly the most violent one. But, like, when he's in the church, he just does what he needs to escape. He's not attacking anyone. He's not trying to kill them, right? And there are a couple times where I'm like, just kill them, bro. Like, they're obviously evil. It's clearly self-defense. You've already murdered that kid that's still in your trunk. But it's like, man, if this was all real... and they were really doing what they had to survive. It's like, man, good job, Bert, for, like, not actually injuring anyone more than you had to. And, like, he didn't kill Isaac. So I'm so torn on the ethics of this movie. And then, man, speaking of ethics, they go back to their car, which is unusable. So I did see that I think it was Linda Hamilton, by the way. I haven't seen any of the Terminator movies, but I know that's what she's famous for. And I'm watching this when it started, and I was just like, is that Linda Hamilton? Like, she doesn't seem like an action star. And so at the beginning, I was like, it's probably someone else in this movie. But there's like no other adult women in the movie. So I checked it, and yeah, that's her. She's Vicky the whole movie. And I was like, this must have been a while before Terminator then, right? Because she's very young, first of all, but like non-threatening. She's like the caring, sensitive person that talks with Sarah, which, like, granted, she's the woman, so like it makes sense in a movie of this era that that's who's gonna be that. But I was like, how much time, before she evolved into who she is in Terminator? Because the Terminator movies are pretty old too, right? And I looked it up, and it's the same year as this movie, and I don't know which one was first, but like, apparently that girl has some range, and I will be watching the Terminator movies at one point. I've got them all. Right there. Got the 6-movie pack. But yeah, that was surprising. What was I talking about? So they're at their car. Oh, I think that actress had made some comment about, like, why are we going back to the car? He already saw that it was stuffed with corn. It makes no sense. And apparently somebody was like, oh, we want the audience to think you're stupid, which I don't get that. I'm kind of going with that he didn't get a good look at it earlier, so maybe he didn't realize it was unusable. Anyway, they go back to the car. They realize they can't drive to the next town, which I can't remember what it was. I know it starts with an H, so I keep wanting to say Haddonfield, but that's the town from Halloween, so that's not it. But Job and Sarah are with them, and like they decide that they're going to let these 2 kids walk 20 miles with them also, I guess. But then they're also like, hey, do you want to come live with us for a while? And it's like, you can't just make that decision. It's like, you've got to contact the authorities, try to explain, like, what are you going to tell them? What's the aftermath of this movie? Is the first sequel an actual sequel? Because that one, for sure, I want to find out what happens after this in the story. I hope if it is a sequel that it explains that and doesn't just jump to another harvest season or whatever. But like, you got to try to explain to these cops and everything what has actually gone on here and why there's a dead kid in your trunk. Are you going to just try to hide that and be like, oh, he must have died with someone? I don't know. But then, even if the cops believe that you are completely innocent, you still can't just be like, by the way, we're going to take these 2 kids. Maybe the cops would ask, right? Or maybe if you offered, they would let you. But like, that's not your decision. You don't get to just make that decision. But, rolling it back a bit now, I find it very unlikely that the cops are going to believe you. And you killed a kid. So I don't think they're going to let you take these 2 kids, even for a couple days. It's like a weird, cutesy line at the end of the movie. I don't think it makes much sense. I think there's a lot of weird implications about that line. Same year as Terminator. Isaac was telling the truth. My last note, and I hope I don't make anybody upset with this, because I'm just stupid, okay? But Sarah in this movie has what they call the sight, where she can draw the future. Am I making this up, or am I confusing this with something else? Or is this a thing that other Stephen King characters have? Is that what The Shining is? What is The Shining? Because The Shining is like some kind of ability, right? I forget what character in The Shining has The Shining. Is it the main guy? Is it Jack Nicholson? I don't remember like what his deal is. I've only watched The Shining once. It was a couple years ago. So I don't remember what happens. But like then Dr. Sleep, I haven't seen that, but isn't like the main character in that, doesn't he also have The Shining? Is The Shining the same as The Sight? Or are they different? Because I'm almost certain that there are other characters in non-Shining works of Stephen King's that have The Shining, whether or not they call it The Shining. But is it... Because I don't remember anyone in The Shining seeing the future, which is what Sarah does. But I don't remember. Let me know. Let me know in the comments below. And like when I was reading the Wikipedia plot summary, there wasn't any like blue highlighted thing that seemed like it linked to another article explaining when it was talking about Sarah's site. So I might be confusing this with something else. I might be totally making it up and totally wrong. It's very possible. But let me know if you know in the comments. That's all I got on this. Like, I know I nitpicked a lot, but like, this movie really works for me. The premise is simple. The story is simple. There's not like a whole bunch of like B plots and C plots to keep track of. I mean, the effects are bad, but what are you gonna do? I'm curious into at least looking into the sequels and see which ones are what. See if any of them like were well regarded, at least by the fans, because I'd be interested in seeing more stuff like this. If you've seen the sequels, which one's the best one? Should I watch the new one? Because it's like new and probably has decent effects, even though most new remakes or prequels or whatever of old stuff isn't very good. I don't know. Is it going to answer my questions? Even if it's bad, I'll watch it if it answers my questions. I don't know. That's all I got on Children of the Corn. If you couldn't tell, that's what that is. It's corn. So that's going to do it for this video. It's way longer than I wanted it to be. I'm sorry. If you watched it all, thank you very much. I love you. I wouldn't put you up on a crucifix in the middle of a cornfield and chant for your death. But I also don't want you to live with me for a few days. Sorry. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.